Welcome to Listen English Story. Chapter 1. Once upon a time in Scotland, there lived an elderly man named Walter. Walter had never married and had no children or family nearby. He had spent many years alone, but he was very kind and always treated everyone nicely. Walter had never traveled far beyond his home in Scotland, but now he decided it was time for an adventure. He had a mission to complete. Though Walter didn't have a lot of money, he wasn't poor. He had saved some money in his younger years and planned to use it for his mission. He needed money for food, accommodation, and travel. He was determined to complete his mission. First, Walter traveled to Edinburgh. Many people watched him as he walked by because he hadn't cut his hair in a long time and had a long beard. His clothes were also quite unusual, making him stand out in the big city. Walter arrived at the Meadows, a large park in Edinburgh filled with people. He approached a young man who appeared to be around 25 years old. The young man was sitting against a tree, calmly reading a local newspaper. Walter sat down next to him and greeted him. "Good afternoon." "Hello," the young man replied, looking at Walter with suspicion before returning to his newspaper. "How are you, David?" Walter asked. The young man looked up, surprised. How did this strange man know his name? He scrutinized Walter carefully. "Did you say David?" David asked. "Yes, I did. How do you know my name?" "I can't tell you that," Walter replied. David stopped reading the newspaper and examined Walter more carefully. He looked at the long beard and tried to imagine Walter without it, but he couldn't recognize him. "What do you want?" David asked, now very suspicious. "Don't worry," said Walter. "I'm not here to harm you. I want to tell you something." "Go ahead," David responded. "Tell me." Walter pulled a picture out of his pocket. The picture showed an old chest that seemed to contain something valuable. "What's that?" David asked. "Don't you know what it is?" "It looks like a chest. I've never seen it before in my life." Walter looked at David closely, then pointed to the picture. "Look at this." David saw that the chest had a lock with 3 zeros on it. "It's a lock." "Yes, and?" Walter prompted. "The numbers are missing?" David guessed. "That's it," said Walter. "All 3 numbers are missing." Then he looked at David closely. "I need those 3 numbers for my mission," Walter explained. "Mission? What mission?" "I can't tell you that," the old man replied calmly. David was confused. He had no idea what Walter wanted or how he could help. Finally, Walter said, "I'm sure you have one of those numbers. I don't know what you're talking about." David said, "Think about it, David. You must have an old object with a number on it," Walter said. David thought carefully. He was certain he had no such object. Then he remembered something. Maybe he did have something with a number on it? "Now that you mention it," David said excitedly, "I might have something. Wait here, I'll go and get it." "Where are you going?" Walter asked. "To my house. I need to get something." "Wait, I'll come with you." David looked at Walter suspiciously once again. Walter was old and seemed nice, so David guessed it wouldn't be a problem. "Okay," he said. "Follow me." David and Walter left the park and walked along a small street. They then took a bus to David's house, which was in a different part of town. While they traveled, David asked, "What's your name?" "My name is Walter Davis." "And how long have you been in Edinburgh, Mr. Davis?" "Oh, please call me Walter. No need to be so polite." "Okay, Walter. How long have you been in Edinburgh?" "I've been here 2 hours." "Oh, really? That's not long." "Yes, but I like it. There are a lot of nice people and interesting sights here." "Yes, there are." The two men continued talking until they reached David's house. David took Walter to the garage, where he kept many things from his past, including old photos and school notes. "What are we looking for here?" Walter asked. "I remembered something I have that sounds like the object you're looking for." "An old object with a number?" "Yes, an old object with a number. Please wait a minute." "I'm going to look." For half an hour, David searched while Walter tried to help. Eventually, David asked Walter to sit down so he could find it himself. After an hour, David finally found the object. "Look, Walter," he said excitedly, "I've found it." "What have you found?" Walter asked, getting up and walking over. "How do you know it's what I need?" "I don't know, but I've had this for a long time, and it has a number." David unwrapped an old cloth to reveal a gold necklace. Inside the necklace was a number. "When you said you needed something with a number," David explained, "I remembered this. Do you remember who gave you that necklace?" Walter asked. "I'm not sure. I've had it since I was a baby." Walter smiled and opened the garage door. "Where are you going?" David asked. "I'm finished here," Walter replied. "Remember that number and read this." He handed David a letter and walked away. "Wait. Come back. Don't you want the necklace?" David called after him, but Walter was gone, disappearing through the doorway. Walter returned to central Edinburgh and caught a train to the airport. His next destination was Northern Ireland. Chapter 2. A few hours later, Walter arrived safely in Northern Ireland. The city of Belfast was bustling with people and filled with many exciting attractions. However, Walter was focused on his mission and knew exactly where he needed to go. Walter called a taxi and gave the driver a local address. They agreed on a rate, and the destination was in a distant part of Belfast. After some time, he arrived at a large, well-maintained house that looked very expensive. It had a spacious garden with several dogs running around, and even a tennis court. Walter stood outside for a while, simply observing the house, then rang the doorbell. He rang again and waited, but no one answered. "Hello?" he called, but still no one came. The old man decided to wait. Walter took out the photo of the chest, looked at it closely, and smiled before putting it back inside his jacket. He waited some more. Soon, he heard a car approaching. As expected, it was an expensive car, and inside was a woman wearing big sunglasses who didn't notice Walter. The woman pressed a button to open the garage door and slowly drove in, still unaware of Walter's presence. As she reached for the button to close the garage door, Walter called out, "Excuse me, wait." Finally, the woman saw him and stopped, leaving the garage door open. "Yes, who are you?" she asked. "Can I talk to you for a moment, please?" Walter requested. The woman looked at him with suspicion and walked out of the garage. A butler came up from the garden and addressed her. "Miss Murray, shall I take care of your car?" "Yes, Brian. Thank you." "Miss Lucy Murray, am I correct?" Walter asked. "Yes, that's me," Lucy responded, looking at him closely. "I've come to talk to you." "It's important," Walter said. "Important? If it's business, I can refer you to my office," Lucy replied. "No, it's not business," Walter answered. "What could it be?" Lucy asked. Walter only smiled. "Well, whatever it is, come with me. Come into the house, please." Walter followed Lucy inside. The house was enormous and very beautiful. "Is this all yours?" Walter asked. "Yes," she replied. "I'm a professional designer. At age 19, I started a company." She paused and looked around. "What can I say? I've done very well." "I can see that. Wow. You must have done a lot of work." "Yes, I have worked very hard." She started walking again. "Come this way, please." Walter and Lucy went up some steps to a large, beautifully designed wooden door. "Is your house very old?" Walter asked. Lucy smiled. "No, it's not, but it was built with an old design. I have very traditional tastes." Lucy opened the door, revealing a huge room filled with beautiful and expensive furniture. It was very neat and clean. Brian, the butler, soon came in with afternoon tea. "Sir," Brian addressed Walter. "Walter, please. Walter, would you like something to drink?" "Yes, a cup of tea." "Thank you." Lucy took off her jacket because it was a very hot day. Brian, the butler, spoke to Walter again. "Let me take your jacket, sir." Walter took off his jacket and handed it to Brian. The butler left the room and quickly returned with some hot tea for Walter, before leaving Lucy and Walter alone. Lucy and Walter sat down and looked at each other. "Welcome to my home, Walter. May I ask why you are here?" Lucy inquired. Walter sipped some tea, then set his cup on the table. "I need to know a number," he said calmly. Lucy was surprised. "A number?" she asked. "Yes, a number," Walter confirmed. "A specific number?" Lucy asked. "Yes, it would be on an object you have. Please try to remember it," Walter urged. Lucy thought for a while, trying to understand what Walter meant. However, unlike David, she couldn't recall anything. "I don't know what you mean. Please, if you could explain," she said. Walter looked around. He was certain the second number must be here somewhere. Then he remembered the photo. He needed to show her the photo. "Can your butler bring my jacket, please?" Walter asked. "Of course," Lucy replied. Brian left the room and returned seconds later with Walter's jacket. Walter reached into his jacket, which had many pockets, making it difficult to find the photo. It took some time, and Lucy was becoming impatient. At last, Walter found it. "Here it is," he laughed. "I have it. We need the number for this." He placed the picture of the chest on the table. Lucy took the picture and examined it carefully. Suddenly, she remembered something. "I don't know why, but I think I remember something," she said. "Think, Lucy, think," Walter encouraged her. Lucy stood up. "Come with me, Walter," she said. "I don't know who you are or what you want, but you've made me think of something." Walter smiled as he and Lucy left the house. They entered a small building next to it. Inside, the building resembled a private museum with many drawings, paintings, and other valuable items. Near a beautiful drawing, Lucy found a small box. She opened it to reveal a necklace inside. The necklace was just like David's. It was very old, but Lucy managed to open it and recognize the number inside. Lucy handed the necklace to Walter, who examined it carefully. "Okay, that's all I needed," he said calmly. "I still don't understand, Walter. What is it that you want?" "The chest reminded me of the necklace, but I don't know why." "Do you? Is that important?" Lucy asked. Walter paused for a moment. "I have to go now, Lucy. Please don't ask any more questions." He handed her a letter and added, "Remember the number and read this. It will help." Walter turned and left Lucy's house. As he disappeared, he called, "I'm off to London. See you soon, Lucy." Lucy didn't say goodbye. She was too puzzled by Walter's visit. She looked at the letter. It all seemed very suspicious, yet somehow important. She preferred to forget everything, but decided to let the old man have his fun. Slowly, she opened the letter. Chapter 3. At Belfast Airport, Walter bought some food for the journey, though what he really needed was a rest. He was feeling quite tired. However, he remembered there was just one more person to meet, and then his mission would be complete. Walter boarded his flight and soon arrived in London. As usual, he took a taxi into the city. During the ride, the taxi passed the Tate Modern Art Gallery. Walter noticed its large size and asked the driver, "Have you ever been inside the Tate Modern?" "Yes, I have. It's nice, but the art is very modern and quite strange. Lots of odd patterns and colors. I prefer traditional art." The driver replied. "I do as well," Walter said. "I've always liked traditional things." He continued looking out the window as the taxi drove on. Finally, Walter arrived in central London. He paid the driver and got out. There were many sights to see, but he needed to stay focused. His mission was almost complete. Walter didn't know the exact location of the third person's house, so he stopped a man on the street and showed him the address. "Excuse me, how do I get here?" he asked. "Oh, I know that place," the man responded. "It's next to the boat rental shop." He then gave Walter directions. "Thank you," Walter called out as he walked away. Walter decided to walk. It was good for his health and gave him time to think about the events that had happened. Eventually, Walter arrived at the boat rental shop. Next to it was a small wooden house. "I hope someone's home this time," he thought, remembering his wait in Belfast. He disliked waiting and was growing impatient. Walter rang the doorbell. A young man, around 30, answered. He looked a bit like Walter, but without the beard. "Hello." the man greeted. "What can I do for you? Would you like to rent a boat? Maybe book a trip?" "Oh, no," Walter replied. "My name is Walter. I want to talk to you." "No need to call me sir. Please call me Alan." "Okay, Alan. I'd like to talk to you, please." "Certainly, Walter. Come in." Walter looked around. The house was very traditional and simple, much like its owner. Alan wore simple clothes and seemed to have traditional tastes. Everything was very clean and neat. "So you wanted to talk to me," Alan said. Walter started to speak, but then noticed something. Alan was wearing a ring with a number on it. Walter began to laugh. "What is it?" Alan asked, concerned. "I thought I was going to have more difficulty." Walter exclaimed. "Excuse me," Alan asked, confused. "That ring of yours, who gave it to you?" "It was a gift from years ago when I was a boy. I don't remember who gave it to me. I think it used to be a necklace." Walter looked at the number. He had found all 3 numbers. His mission was nearly complete, though there were a few more things to do. "Alan," Walter began, "look at this." He showed Alan the photo of the chest. "This chest has a lock. We need 3 individual numbers to open it. 3 separate people have those numbers. You are one of those people." Alan looked at him strangely. "And what's in the chest?" he asked. "I can't tell you that right now." "But why do I have one of the numbers?" "I can't tell you that either," Walter replied, not wanting to reveal too much just yet. Walter handed Alan a letter and continued, "Please read this letter. The 2 other people have identical letters. The letters tell you what to do." "I have to go now." "Trust me, I'll see you soon." Walter then turned and left. Alan was so surprised he didn't know what to do. He opened the letter, which read, "Dear David, Lucy, and Alan, thank you for reading my letter. As you know, I have helped you each find a number. These numbers are meaningless on their own, but when combined, they open a chest located in Scotland at my home. I would like to invite you to join me there. Please come in 3 days. I have nothing more to write and ask that you do not try to contact me. Soon you will know who I am, but today is not that day. Have a nice trip. Best regards, Walter." 3 days later, David, Lucy, and Alan arrived in Edinburgh, all going to the same address as instructed in the letter. Lucy and Alan arrived first, followed by David. "Hi," David greeted. "Hello," Lucy and Alan replied. After a brief pause, David asked, "What are we doing here? Have you read the letter?" Lucy asked excitedly. "Yes," the men replied, "but I have no idea what this is about." David added, "Well, let's go in and find out," Lucy suggested as she rang the doorbell. Walter, dressed nicely for the special occasion, opened the door and greeted them calmly before inviting them in and thanking them for coming. The house was neat, simple, and very traditional. Although Walter offered them tea, everyone was too excited to accept. Smiling, Walter finally said, "Follow me." Walter led them to a room with a chest in the center. They rushed to it, ready to input their numbers. David entered his number first, followed by Lucy, and finally Alan. When Alan entered his number, the lock clicked and he pushed the chest open. The chest was filled with various items, with another letter on top. Alan laughed. "Ha! Another letter? I can't believe it. Does anyone want to read it?" Lucy asked. "I'll read it," David volunteered. David took the letter from the chest and read it aloud. "Hello, David, Lucy, and Alan. Thank you for coming. I brought you here for a special reason. You all know you were adopted, which I confirmed with the adoption agency." David's hand shook as he asked, "Is that true for you guys, too?" "Yes," Alan replied. "Me, too. Now read on, please," Lucy urged. "The three of you are siblings. I am your uncle. Your mother was my sister. She and your father died in an accident just after David was born. These items belonged to your parents, including the necklaces. After your parents' tragic loss, I was the only family left. I tried to maintain a traditional family, but I couldn't care for a baby and two young children alone. I wanted to ensure you had loving parents, so I asked an adoption agency for help. Now that you are adults, it is time for you to know the truth. You have more family than you realize. Look around. I invite you to meet your brothers, sisters, and me, your uncle. Love, Walter, David, Lucy, and Alan looked at each other and then turned to see Walter, their uncle, smiling at them. "I have so much to tell you," he said calmly. When you want to learn English, read, listen, and speak for 1 hour every day. Thank you so much for watching until the end.